Yo, Lito Lolo coming back down to earth here, and stalking is a psychological defect found in the primal parts of human nature. This malignant flaw that typically exists within men, as we could view the statistic that 87% of stalking perpetrators are of the male variety, and with the accessibility of the internet, this has allowed some of them to now virtually cyberstalk their fanatical victim in ways Charles Darwin never thought possible. Do women have it easier on Twitch was a question I had asked myself in a previous video, where I had ultimately came to the conclusion that no, women do not in fact have it easier, and one of the core reasons for that decision was mainly because women have platformed themselves as a public figure on the internet, exposing themselves and their content to a global scale. And due to this, they have been put in the unfortunate position where they now have become privy to a crisis that consists of a wide range of stalkers. Now, I'm sure there are question marks appearing over your guys' head like this is a Shonen Jump manga, challenging the idea that if this was the case, then why don't these women just simply stop pursuing their online presence altogether? And I reply on a mountain overlooking you in the shadows as a dark figure where only my eyes are visible. This is their career and how they generate revenue for their livelihoods. It's the ill-fated cost of being a public figure as a woman in this online space, and something that they woefully have to experience and endure, especially since the police rarely ever intervene with such consequential matters, which we will dive into that topic soon. But I am curious to why we never asked the question to why don't these stalkers just stop stalking? You know, let's do a Uno reverse card on this situation here, right? Why don't they find a different outlet for their miserable lives, like getting a job? Or, even better, autoerotic asphyxia. What is the psychology behind an individual that will go to the depths of finding someone's address, purchase a plane ticket even though they are deeply in debt, and pull up to the house with the delusion that they are this knight in shining armor saving this damsel in distress from this miserable, hyper luxurious lifestyle where they get to order DoorDash and play video games every day? Oh, the whores! And you wanna know what's the crazy part? The description that I just provided is not too far from the reality that some of these women celebrities have had to face at some point in their career. In fact, these are the primary sources from these women of their encounters with these creepy, persistent, mentally ill invaders that we can find on the internet to comprehend the dangers that some of these women have to undergo in this online space that bears similarities to what I just described. I'll provide you with the example later. Okay, so before we fully grasp the psychology of why a stalker goes down the path that they do, where they decide to tread this obsessive, twisted path, I firstly want to demonstrate to you what even inspired me to make this video in the first place. Now, I'm going to provide you with a chronological order in how these affairs took place, with a small clip for reference to better understand the situation. It was an incident that occurred not too long ago on the Santa Monica Pier in a live stream that consisted of the streamers Valkyrie, Senna, and Emiru, where they had just arrived at their destination when an anxious fan approached them, introducing himself as Russell.
Hello.
I was waiting for it.
Nice to meet you. Hi.
My name's Russell.
Hi, nice
Hi,
to
Ray.
meet
Nice
you.
to meet you.
I'm like, could you take
Rosie.
a photo?
Rosie, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
My name's Russell.
Seemed like a relatively normal and personable interaction between a fan and several well-known online entities, right? There was absolutely nothing abnormal about that experience at all. So the girls decide to venture on with the stream and go on the Ferris wheel because that is their unalienable right. How fun. It was like watching the Powerpuff Girls, you know, like sweet, spice, and everything nice. But it wasn't until they got off the amusement ride where everything wasn't, in fact, sweet, nice, and just spice. Because sitting there with his mom's psycho-ass haircut and a collared shirt that looked like it was designed by a sponge under the sea was the ordinary admirer that the woman encountered earlier, Russell.
For her number?
Oh,
If you like it, can I get your number?
I don't have a phone.
Wait, so I'm gonna keep following her. I'm gonna keep following her.
That's not how you really raise.
Bro, what the fuck?
That's not the
What kind of misconceived fantasy does an average man have to have that plants him in front of a successful woman streamer who is making close to 7 figures? I know for a fact Valkyrie is making 7 figures. She probably has hit 8 figures. If we're being real, Emerald, who averages like 15 to 20k viewers per stream, is definitely hitting 7 figures. No doubt, right? This individual was socially inept enough to the extent where he was diligently determined to get her number even after she attempted to let him down easy. And with this false self-deception is met with reality, he immediately gets aggressive and enters a predatory phase where he then chooses to harass the girls further and stay within their AoE radius. This is like Joe Goldberg if he was bad at his job. It's insane. Now, the situation escalates to the lengths of this unhinged fanatic even threatening the woman and their lives. That's how bad it gets.
Hey, excuse me?
No!
Security?
Emily, no!
Hey,
Stop!
Whoa.
Let's fucking fight right now.
What?
Get away from
now.
Hey, what's going
Security!
He's harassing us.
on? What's going on? What's going on, man?
Right now. Kill you right now.
Fuck off.
Kill you right now.
Now, this entire circumstance was upsetting for anybody who is competent and a functional human being in a regular society, right? It's difficult to not see this and not cringe at the egotistical nature that this man exhibited when he realized that this imaginary scenario that he created in his fucked up head was not going to happen. And I mean, for the most part, the online reaction to this was generally positive for the woman involved, and people were just relieved that they were safe. But of course, though, with all online feedback, there is always a variety of different perspectives and opinions that questionably begin to emerge in lunacy and unethical conduct. Examples of this were that some people were undermining these women and their experience by saying that it was completely staged, or that somehow they were in the wrong because they should have been nicer to the guy, completely dismissing the mental outburst that he had, and even going as far as threatening their lives. It's like they completely forgot about that. Like, that shit didn't exist. That didn't happen. You know? It's like in some people's eyes, due to their projection and their own handling with women, they immediately perceive themselves in this Russell guy, and it like triggers a neurological stimuli response that makes them turn into Ed Norton's the Hulk. Now, I would say that the only comment that I do have, and this is me coming from a very honest and sincere place, but I do believe that they should have had security. As 3 well-known online internet celebrities roaming around at night as women is a very terrifying idea. And I know the question that then arises from this is, well, shouldn't we be questioning the men and their behavior? And I agree, we should. But that still does not disregard or change their behavior. We can question it all we want, but it's not going to change the fact that a great percentage of them, not all of them obviously, but a percentage of them are crazy. Looney Tune batshit crazy. You know, there are always going to be creeps lurking in the shadows that will build a complete unrealistic expectation in their head. People like this exist, and that is scary and the harsh reality that we live in. And on top of this, another dark truth is that Emaru specifically has had these occurrences happen to her on more than one occasion. I feel like with this knowledge and being aware of her past experiences, that should have amplified the logical motive to want to provide security for just her presence alone. Because I don't know what it is about Emeru. Maybe it's because she's deeply tapped in with the degenerate culture, or because she's closely associated with Asmongold and Tectone, who both attract this type of audience, even though that's not their intention, which then puts her at like Grandmaster when it comes to these obsessively diluted crazies. You know, it's insane. Like, I believe she or Miss Kiff, who is a very close associate of hers, has said that she moved to Austin, Texas a few years back just so that she can escape a demented and tenacious stalker that she had back at home. You know how terrifying that must be? To constantly be on edge because of this devious entity preying on you in the shadows like Selin Bradley from Full Metal? Some of these women content creators online legit are living out a horror film. Now, after the incident that occurred on the Santa Monica Pier, Mizkif would tell a story about a stalker experience that he had with Emeru at an anime convention, where this person followed them around compulsively and would even go as far as taking a plane ticket back to Mizkif's house with his last few dollars, rendering him penniless, just because he believed that him and Emeru were meant to be together.
I pulled a gun on a viewer that came to my house, and he was there for Emmy. I mean, I don't talk about this shit because I don't really think there's a point a lot of time, but yeah, I pulled a gun on a viewer because he showed up to my house and he was banging on my door asking for Emmy. If he stepped in my house, would I have shot him? I would have killed him. Absolutely. If that guy tried to get in my house, I was going to kill him.
Now, Mizkif would have to call the police on this psychotic individual, but that still did not stop other stalkers from engaging with them. Of course it didn't. They're like pests that continue to crawl through your walls, and once you killed one, you assume that was the last of them until you realize that they multiply at an unprecedented rate, even going as far as finding the exact traffic cams that encompass your house and taunting you with saying that they know where you are, who you're with, and what you're doing. Like you are their prey that they get to play around with every time they have a manic breakdown.
Just spamming me that he watched me from my street cameras.
Well, there are theories that can explain the psychology of this phenomenon as seen in the article on the website, the British Psychology Society, where we can develop an understanding on the conceptualization of what stalking is. These notions can vary in different classifications that can revolve around attachment, socio-cultural influence, goal pursuits, mental health diagnosis, personality constructs, and violent research that makes it difficult to pinpoint an exact cause for the demographic of stalkers that are dedicated to these online influencers, but by accumulating the psychology behind all these facets of well-informed theories, we can establish a general comprehension of what could be the cause. Now, the attachment theory is centered around how we instinctively have a disposition to bond with a caregiver as a survival strategy. It has been identified that those who engage in stalking behavior often have a disruption in their formation of a secure attachment as a child and use this unethical format as a coping mechanism to re-establish self-worth. It is also very common in narcissistic vulnerability, which corresponds with fragile self-esteem, insecurity and anxiety, need for validation, difficulty with rejection, and it is argued that people who have this disorder have the tendency to desire unstable and insecure attachments because it reflects strategies that help them manage a greater level of narcissistic vulnerability than secure attachments. This then leads to relationship goal pursuit theory, an approach on understanding how relationships can be obsessive, which then can lead to excessive stalking. It states that people unconsciously correlate the relationship with success, which then is interlinked with happiness and self-worth. If they think that the only way they can maintain happiness is by achieving this relationship, then the higher those goals are. And if they are denied, this then can lead to an intensified pursuit due to negative sentiments being triggered. This theory could even be applied to individuals who are not in relationships and who were never intimate, as we could even make the comparison to what happened on the Santa Monica Pier as an example.
Wait, so I'm gonna keep following her. I'm gonna keep following her.
There are also some biological and neurological theories that suggest that the attachment experience affects the amygdala, which is the fear response center, and its connection with the hypothalamus, which controls emotional regulations of our moods. A defective amygdala can reduce the fear instilled within the brain, which can actually invoke criminal tendencies and an antisocial personality. And this is something that is undoubtedly in relation to a stalker. Also, that dopamine, the reward point of our brain that is responsible for the hyperactivity and euphoric response, is typically triggered in the stalker due to this delusional love reaction that they have conceived for the victim, which then can explain the obsessive nature that they tend to exude. And with the internet, it makes it easier for these stalkers to access this information, and especially if you are a popular online entity, it decreases that difficulty by a significant amount, as if they were playing casual Minecraft. An example of this, from what I have observed online, is one of the many infamous Pokemon stalkers who goes by the username Shelbo99.
Pokemon, Iman, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever met in my entire life. Each and every day with you is better than the last.
Now, initially, I assumed that what he was doing was a satirical bit to garner attention from the masses as some form of like clickbait that will ultimately build his following in the end. But as time progressed, it became inherently clear that this in fact was not a running gag at all, and that he was actually someone who featured behavioral traits that are common among stalkers. As we can see, his YouTube page as evidence consists of a quantity of videos that share a frequent theme of him unironically believing that him and the streamer Pokemon are dating. Now, if you dive into these videos, you can witness a man who is mentally unstable and seemingly absent in reality based off a multitude of emotional cues like his unexpressive gaze. Now, I don't want to be mean to this guy because I don't believe that he is malicious as of now, but I do truly believe that he needs to seek psychiatric help and assistance for his mental decline that seems like it has reached the outskirts of no return. The consequences, if he doesn't, will be severe, and the current spectrum that he is on for a stalker can possibly have a dramatical increase to the point where he might actually show up on her doorstep. I think his cognitive deterioration became evident in this one video where it seemed like he was at the hospital.
There is an update I would like to make to everyone out there that's been watching Shelbo 99.
Excuse me, sir. You can't be filming.
I'm doing so.
You can't be
I'm
filming.
doing so.
I understand.
Yes, do you understand what I'm doing?
There's a HIPAA law in place. Okay, patient privacy.
The position of an online female influencer is a dangerous setting to be in, especially when there are predators stealthily concealing themselves behind an anonymous username. You know, and you would assume that the police would be a safety net to serve and protect these creators from these damaging occurrences, but as many of these women have vocalized, it is nearly impossible to seek the law for help, because unless these stalkers are physically assaulting or harming them in any way, then there really isn't anything they can do. But as we all know, that could be the only determinant separating these women from life and death. Christina Grimmie, a rising YouTuber who specialized in her song covers, wonderful piano skills, and as a factor of this, even propelled her into substantial heights like being a contestant on The Voice, was murdered on June 16th at the Plaza Live in Orlando, Florida, by a stalker who had grown an unhealthy infatuation with the YouTube singer. Now, after taking the life of Christina Grimmie, he would then proceed to commit suicide, which can be vindictive of his motive, which was centered around the idea, if I can't have you, then nobody can, which then relates to the psychological analysis that I had mentioned earlier. Another grievous attack actually happened when I was writing the script of this video recently. This occurred in Shinjuku, Japan, where a woman streamer got stabbed to death by a man who was an anti-fan and wanted his money back after donating to her. This man decided to use his free will to donate to her and got so upset that he decided to kill her because, I don't know, maybe his advances didn't work out. Maybe he assumed that by donating her $5 that she was going to fucking marry him on the spot. I don't even know how to process this information. These are real life occurrences that are the damaging results of being a woman content creator in this space. As we could see time and time again, the amount of incidences where these women have been harassed and threatened just because they wanted to pursue an online occupation. This is a crisis that might be deeply rooted in human nature, and due to this, I hope that women can find safe and productive habits and services that can protect them from these mentally ill individuals. Anyways, that's all for me. I'm off to another dimension. See ya.